The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we are joined by Matthew Binko, Training Manager at Phoenix Data Systems. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor, Phoenix Data Systems. Phoenix is committed to offering the finest CMMS software, service and support available in the industry. Their AIMS-3 software is powerful yet flexible to improve operational efficiency and has evolved by listening to and in collaborating with their customers. Their annual AIMS user conference is one of the primary ways they achieve this exchange of ideas. Phoenix is dedicated to the continued development of their AIMS-3 platform. So for more information, please visit goaims.com. Just a quick reminder about our Fall MD Expo. We're headed to the Carib Royal Hotel in Orlando, Florida next month, October the 29th to the 31st. So please join us for 3 days of education, networking, and the latest advances in medical technology products and services. Registration is open, so for more details, please visit mdexposhow.com. Also, a copy of the pre-show planner can be found in the handout section of your webinar dashboard. I'd also just like to add that in its continued effort to promote and applaud the men and women in the HTM industry, TechNation magazine is introducing the Tech Choice Awards, also known as the Wrenches. Nominations are being accepted through November the 3rd in a variety of categories, including Military BMAT of the Year, ISO Employee of the Year, and Association of the Year. Up to 13 wrenches will be awarded, with the winners selected based on 100% votes from those who make up the HTM industry, and the winners will be announced in the March 2024 issue of TechNation. More details can be found in the handout section of your dashboard and also online at onetechnation.com/Tech Choice Awards. Okay, today's webinar is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once you've submitted the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Let's kick off today's webinar by giving away one of our very popular Webinar Wednesday t-shirts to the attendee that can tell the answer to the following trivia question. September is National Chicken Month. What is the name of the founder of the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant chain? Answer now using the questions feature on your dashboard, and I'll reveal the answer at the end of the webinar. We'll wrap up today's presentation with a live Q&A, so please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on your dashboard. As I mentioned earlier, our presenter today is Matthew Binko, and he will be discussing maintaining proficiency of a CMS at all levels of an organization. Matthew, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, and some additional trivia. On one of my business trips, I actually had the pleasure of visiting the original KFC. It's still in its original state. It's not like a fast food restaurant. It's more like a diner. Cool place to visit, by the way. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to maintaining proficiency of a CMMS at all levels of an organization. My name is Matthew Binko, and like she said, I am with Phoenix Data Systems. We create, in our opinion, the finest CMMS in the world, called AIMS-3. So today, let's talk about a little bit of who I am. Again, I'm the manager of training for Phoenix Data. I've got 28 years of experience in the industry. I used to be a CMMS senior consultant, my last job, and Director of Security of 2 South Florida hospitals. Pretty fun. I also am retired from the United States Army, spent 22 years, did a few deployments, had some fun, got my body aches, and now I'm living life down here in South Florida, where today it happens to be nice and rainy. So who are we? We had our first installation in 1984 in 8 hospitals. We've grown a little bit. Today we're in 3,000 hospitals and 20 countries. I had the luxury and privilege last year to go across the pond last year and take an entire country live. So that was fun. We're just designed exclusively for HTM industry. We have taken other departments live with our software, such as facilities, EVS, and even some ancillary ones like central supply, stuff like that. We are a scalable system that grows with your department, and we are continually enhanced and supported to include industry mandates. Our normal upgrade schedule has changed a little bit since the last time I had the luxury and privilege of doing a webinar Wednesday. We still do 2-week sprints. We get enhances and bug fixes out, but we now do upgrades about once a month. Earlier, we used to do them every 2 weeks, but with our customer size now and our just our schedule, our tempo, we're just getting so busy we have to upgrade once a month. And we educate our customers through obviously release notes, and then if they get so in depth, I'll do a complimentary review of all of the enhancements of our software. We would love to take you on and show you what AIMS 3 can do for you. All right, so let's get down into the meat and taters. So how do we maintain our proficiency with our CMMS? It is a passion of mine, simply because when I was a consultant, I can't tell you how many customers I would run into, and they'd say, man, I really wish the software could do this or that or the other thing. And I'd say, what are you talking about? Software can absolutely do any of those things that you mentioned. And they're like, when did this happen? And stuff like that. And so I always try and incorporate into the training process with Phoenix Data how to stay proficient throughout. And the way we do it is we want to make sure that you're matching your software with your workflow. So many people go into the purchase process and they look for price or something like that, scalability maybe, but workflows kind of take a back seat, and we got to make sure that that doesn't happen. We also do it through quality initial training, and we have to separate roles. We have to decide, are the workflows even doable within the software? So before we even conduct training, we need to make sure that we can meet your needs. And then usually after initial training, we conduct what we call a post-go live Q&A, because a lot of times when administrators and technicians go through that initial training, they don't know what they don't know. It's kind of like buying a new car. You know, you don't sit on that dealer's driver's lot, you know, for hours reading the owner's manual cover to cover and then go drive the car. You test drive it for a little while. You go about 2 weeks and then you say, hey, what does this button do? And so we offer several different tools to do that here at Phoenix. And then finally, once you're live, once your staff has been trained, we have to make sure that we have a constant bi-directional communication between us and our clients. We cannot forget those that have gone live. You know, I guess their tech support's problem now. We don't do that. The example I like to tell my clients is that I like to be the crazy ex-girlfriend. Every now and again, you turn around, right? And there I am. And that's how we do. So we're going to break each of these 3 down. And I hope that you take into consideration how you've gone live in the past, what you're doing currently, and how you would like your communication to happen in the future. Because communication is where it's all about. All right. So matching the software with the workflows. A lot of your standard software out there does kind of all the same thing. It just takes a different way to get there. And so before you even start looking at different software, you should be asking yourself, what do we absolutely, positively need it to do? I have a wonderful client, I can't say names, but they actually came to us during the go live process, and they have scripts that they say, we need your software to be able to handle these scripts that we have created. And so the script, let's say it's completing a PM work order. First of all, we need to know how it's going to be generated. Is it going to be generated automatically, or are we going to have to generate them ourselves? Can we do either or? Once the work order is created, how are people notified? And then once they're notified and they go into the work order, what steps do they have to take versus what steps can we mandate they take? Because whenever you go in a software, you're going to have different requirements. Here at Ames or Phoenix Data Systems, we have our requirements for finishing a work order, whether it be a PM work order or a non-PM work order. And then you may also have your requirements, such as your tasks. Some organizations will have a task that's just follow OEM guidelines. And then you have other clients that they break that thing down into 60 steps or what have you. And so it's helpful that as you're deciding which software to go through those scripts like that, or go through your demands or your guidelines and make sure that that software will absolutely, positively work for your workflows. Secondly, you absolutely have to test the software. Now, our organization will give you at least one test environment in order to make sure that your workflows will work for you, because you can sit down with me who knows the software like the back of his hand, but can your technicians do what they need to do? Can they figure it out? Is that software intuitive enough for them to figure out their job? So with Phoenix Data Systems, everyone, before they go live, will get a test site. And that test site will look something like this. A lot of people say we look like the DHL website because of the yellow and the red and the black. But as you'll see up here at the top, we have a test site, and then we set up several different users, and we try and associate different roles to them, whether it's technician or super user or administrator. And we let you click through the system and make sure you know how it works. Hey, look, we have other open work orders. I wonder what that does, right? Different stuff like that. Now, I say we give you at least one test instance because there are times where you have several different go lives going at the same time. And if we're constantly refreshing your test site with the next go live, then that may interfere with your testing. And so with certain clients that have multiple stages of go lives, we provide a stage site as well for data review for the next go live and stuff like that. Now, it's during this process that we give the test environment out that the customers absolutely positively go through the system and make sure that, number one, the data is correct, but the software is functioning perfectly for them. Because here's where you start with your initial basis of knowledge. It's kind of like whenever I would move to a new neighborhood, I would purposefully get lost and see if I could make my way back home. And it's the same way in the software. If you get lost in the software, right? Customer service, what's this? Can you get back home or get back to wherever it is that you're going? Is it intuitive enough And this will help make the decision of how much training is necessary and how to focus that training. Because what may seem intuitive and easy to us here at Phoenix Data Systems, when the customer gets in there, they're like, how do you create that purchase request again? And that might be an area that you have to focus on. So please, 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 as you get your test systems during the go live, absolutely, positively, yes, review your data, make sure it's correct and how it should look in our system or any system. But click around in the program. It's a test environment. If you do break it, you know what we're going to do? We're going to build you another one. Easy peas, lemon squeeze, right? And then as you're clicking through those, as you're running your data and making sure that, you know, the work order type is where it's supposed to be and the cost centers are where they're supposed to be, here is a good time to codify your workflows. Sure, you know what you want it to do and stuff like that, but one of the things that will help you in the future is by codifying those work orders, putting it on paper and stuff like that, because thus begins your artifacts for training new hires. Or if Joint Commission comes in and they say, what is your process for closing work orders in the CMMS? And you have that either on file physically or you have it in a computer somewhere saying, this is how we do it. Because if it's one thing we know about the Joint Commission, they want you to say what you're going to do, and then they want to see that they're doing it. When you do codify these while you're testing these, it's not a one and done. I've always recommended that you should review your security levels. You should review your access and definitely review your workflows at least biannually. You know, you want to, or semi-annually. Am I saying that right? Twice a year. How about that? That way you can make sure that everybody has the exact access they need and they have the exact access that you want them to have. But it's also a great time to review these SOPs and update them as necessary. So that's matching software with your workflow. So before you even have gone live, during the purchase process and stuff like that, you're absolutely making sure that the software will work for you and it'll match your workflows. Because if it does, picking up on this software by your technicians and by your super users will be that much easier. Because if you have it to where you're failing PMs automatically and it'll create a corrective maintenance work order, then that makes it much easier for them to understand. That's how the software should react, right? Some of these you'll have to set up yourself. Some of these may automatically happen within the software. Another thing to mention about that is definitely make sure you're looking for a software that will match your technician's natural proficiency. Because if you have an HTM department full of young bucks and they love computers and stuff like that, you can absolutely roll out a ServiceNow based software. ServiceNow, I was an administrator for them for a little while. It's a great software, does a lot of great things. However, if your staff isn't normally used to computers, I can't tell you how many facilities departments I've went into, and I'm not picking on them or anything like that, but they all have a boiler operator that's a little bit older. You know, he doesn't even have a smartphone. He has a flip phone. And if you're going to try and make that person operate something off of ServiceNow, then it's probably not going to happen. I've seen organizations where they still have their PMs on a Rolodex, right? So you definitely want to make sure that that software matches the personnel as well. And one final point about those testing the workflows, I was mentioning the script earlier, is definitely make sure you see the software do your workflows in action. You definitely want them to be seen in action, that they do work before you agree on that go live. All right. Now that we've matched our software with our workflows, let's talk about quality initial training. Training should not happen just all at once, meaning your administrators with your super users, with your technicians, and stuff like that. You should really have something designed and planned out. For example, here's a training plan that I send out before I go on site with our clients. There's a lot of white space up here because I had to take off a logo. But over on the left-hand side, I describe who I am, why they chose me to come in and train you. But we take a good couple of days to get the administrator training done. We talk about our data managers. We talk about system setup. We talk about how the workflows are going to fit. It is with quality administrators that your training issue can partially solve itself, and that is simply by having a train the trainer. Now, the administrators aren't always the directors of the departments or anything like that. I always recommend, number one, who has the most aptitude for learning CMMS systems, but secondly, who's going to be there the longest in theory, simply because you don't want to train up all of your administrators and then they leave the next year, right? So, but we give a good couple of days worth of administrator focused based training. And then from there, we move on to the technician training. And that is always going to be based off of whatever we've decided in the administrator training, because you don't want someone to come in here and do a cookie cutter, let's go ahead and talk about creating equipment and stuff like that, if the technicians are never going to create equipment. So depending on how much material is covered, you could possibly do more classes in a day, because I do about 3 classes. But if we can cram or create training classes that are an hour and a half, you could possibly cram in more. Now, one of the more important things about this initial training is the last day. You'll see that we do something that's called Go Live Assistance. Even if the technicians have a computer in front of them and they're learning the system as I'm presenting it, it's a lot of information. And the focus of my trainings are, I don't want you to memorize everything I say. I want you to understand what the software can do. If you can't exactly point out how to do it, that's fine. Just know that it can do it and you'll figure it out. But with Go Live Assistance, I spend the last day and I just stay in the department. And as people have questions, they can approach me and say, show me again how to add a material to a work order. Show me again how to customize my home screen, stuff like that. And it's with that people really tend to learn the software. And then, like I was saying before, within a couple of weeks, we normally do a post-go live Q&A. And it's very unstructured, and it's basically bring your questions. I don't care what the questions are. Nothing is too simple. Nothing is too hard. We're going to get you through it. And so being able to have a quality on-site initial training really lends itself to learning the software. You want to customize that training for every level. So as we're going through that administrator training, you're deciding, do we want our technicians to even see the purchasing component of the software? Are they ever going to put in a purchase request or purchase order? Do we want our technicians to export? Do we want our technicians to assign multiple work orders all at the same time? Or do we want them to even assign at all, reassign work orders at all? And that's how you get that very specific one-on-one customized training during the technician training. It's also during that time that I always see the people who are picking it up better than the other people. And I always refer that back to the client and say, hey, look at James over here. He's really picking this up. He's eating it up. Maybe this is one of the personnel that you want to make a train the trainer. And you may make him or her a super user to help with other technicians. It's also important to preserve your meeting notes from the administrator training, from the meetings prior to training, to augment those workflows that I was talking about in that first section when I was talking about codifying workflows and stuff like that. Those can also add to it. Another thing that we offer at Phoenix is the ability to record. And I'll usually record all of the technician trainings, and I'll find the one that went the best. Maybe it had exceptional questions, or maybe it had good feedback where no one would ask questions in the previous trainings. And with that recorded technical training, you can use that to onboard new employees throughout the years, because it's going to have that essence, that basic, this is our standard workflow. Things may change over the years, like we may change our software, you guys may change a workflow here and there, but it probably isn't going to be so horrifically different that they won't at least benefit somewhat from watching that recording. We also offer the ability, if you wanted an updated recording, obviously that's going to cost money, but we could do something like that as well. We're kicking around the idea of having a Phoenix University to where technicians or super users can come back and retake the training and be presented with a certificate, stuff like that. We haven't finalized that as of yet. All right. Train the Trainer is going to be one of your best tools going forward. And it's with the next section that we're going to be talking about, the bidirectional communication, that your train the trainers really want to be become involved in. Because instead of all of the trainers having to, email whatever vendor you have for your CMMS and say, hey, what's new? What have you added? What bugs have you fixed? Stuff like that. It's good to have a central point of contact, and maybe it's the trainer that conducts all of the future training to say, hey, here's what's going on. Also within our system, we provide how-to guides that are regularly updated. You'll notice that in our user menu, we have our how-to guides, and our home screen has write-up has been updated as of July 21st. And it's with these that we put the new features. And if you learn anything like me, I put a lot of pictures in here to help with the learning. So don't ever forget the internal resources of your software and how they can help with training as well. In our software, I try and put all of our major components in here. And then I also put in a few subjects. Like in our software, we offer something called automation. And it basically says, if this happens, then I want this to automatically happen. So if we fail a PM, we want a corrective maintenance to automatically occur. If I say on a work order, I'm retiring this equipment or I'm taking it out of service. I want the equipment to automatically retire, stuff like that. We have that in our write-up on how to build those. How do you trigger, how do you set the conditions for that trigger, and then what you want that action to be. Any software worth its weight in gold will have its how-to guides built into the system and help with that training as you go along. All right. Our third area is constant bidirectional communication. And this goes back to my first story I started off with, where I can't tell you how many clients will say, man, I really wish the software would do this, but it already does. And they just haven't been notified of it. One of the easiest way to figure out what has been added are release notes, and that's found near the same place in our user menu. We have our release notes. Oops, I accidentally opened up the folder. There you go. And so you'll see with our release notes, we offer a list of what was fixed. We have our enhancements, and then we have our bugs and anything that we've changed to, like the license file and stuff like that. So we've added the ability recently to add an on-call feature. So after hours, who do you want to have on call? We can drag and drop images into our attachments down here. We've added a troubleshooting guide for ECRI, so on and so forth. One of the things I wanted to point out in here are these 3-digit numbers you see every once in a while: 622, 407, 139, 718, you'll see in here as well, so on and so forth. Those are our customer numbers. And I like to point this out because it proves that we listen to our customers. They want to know what we're doing to enhance and what are we doing to fix bugs. So you'll see those customer numbers throughout. We absolutely value our customers. We insist on bidirectional communication, even to their complaint. Why are you calling me, Matthew? Well, I want to make sure the software's still doing what it should be doing, that you want it to do. But you definitely also learn from your user acceptance testing. Earlier, I mentioned that we provide a test site while you're going live. You're going to keep that test site as long as you're a customer. And before we ever upgrade your production system, we're going to upgrade your test system. And we insist that all of our customers go in there, do your normal workflows, make sure you can do what you can do, and report back anything that may have been broken or not fixed or what have you, so we can fix them before we update your prod. But it's a great way of exploring those new enhances. It's exploring those bug fixes, and then through word of mouth, you can share to your technicians and to your super users that, hey, this is what's new in the software. Most importantly, you should be communicating with your vendor what your software needs are. Maybe like if you go with an AIMS or another similar CMMS that's not based off of ServiceNow, how can we integrate with ServiceNow? How can we integrate with PeopleSoft? Or we even built one for Granger. So just because it isn't built in doesn't necessarily mean we can't make it happen for you, right? And so in our software, we give all of our customers the ability to create their own interface. When you create a new interface in our system, it gives you an API key in order to communicate with the other software. But we don't think that customers should have to pay us thousands of dollars just to know how to interface with our software system, so we give it to you through documentation on how to communicate with all of our fields. So a lot of times, the information that you're looking for is built into the system. Sometimes it takes a call to tech support and for them to point out, hey, here it is, but that's fine. I really want each and every one of you on the call, before you get tired of your software, before it becomes stale to you, before you feel it's not working for you, please, please, please contact your vendor and say, here's what I want to do. Can we do it? And if so, how do we do it? This is a relationship that works both ways, and I encourage each and every one of you, I don't care how low you are on the totem pole. If you can't do something in your software system, reach out and say, how can we do it? We never turn anyone away. If your software has bugs, if it doesn't have the functionality you need, please reach out and ask. Now, we do something a little extra here at Phoenix, and we have what we call a user group. So when you're talking about sharing your knowledge about the CMMS you're on, sure, you have professional associations like Amy and stuff like that. Maybe you go to their functions and you talk there, or if you talk to third-party consultants, stuff like that, or querying your employees, right? New employees might come from an organization that uses AIMS or another software, and they can opine on that. But we do something called our user conference. We do this for all of our customers. They can come down to St. Pete this year, October 15th through the 18th, my backyard, and they get together with other customers and they talk about how the software is working for them. They get to meet our developers and say, why haven't you developed this yet, guy? It does happen. Sometimes they get to meet me. I think I'm going to be on site with a client this week, but hey, I'm used to South Florida. I love it. I live here. But it's a great way to have that bi-directional communication with Phoenix Data Systems and maybe get a little bit tipsy at the same time. But number one, absolutely, 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 positively, make sure the software is going to match your workflows. Because otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure. Make sure you're getting quality initial training. I guess it's okay to do online training. We're doing it right now. I prefer on-site. I find I get a better connection with the client and their technicians. But make sure you get quality initial training. And then finally, make sure you keep that constant bi-directional communication with your vendor. If you want to improve your CMMS experience, come on over to Phoenix. We have over 35 years of longevity, probably more than that now. Reliability, superior customer service, definitely in the high 90s with that. And we think we're innovating with our software, putting automation in there, letting customers build their own interfaces, so on and so forth. I want to thank everybody for listening today. Again, my name is Matthew Binko, Manager of Training here at Phoenix Data. Don't forget to stay on till the end to make sure you get your 1 hour CE credit.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thanks so much, Matthew. I've got a few questions that have come in. First one is, how can someone who is a technician get more information or training on their CMMS?
I understand the frustration that may come with this because you may have a vendor that says, make sure you go through your point of contact in order to call tech support, right? So there may be some barriers for that. And like I was saying in our software, I would say the very first place you want to start is those how-to guides. Read them front to back, see what they offer. The thing that you'll run in with how-to guides, however, is they're going to show you everything the system can do, right? And unfortunately, they may not have purchased some of those functionalities. They may have turned off those functionalities, but at least it'll start a conversation. And then after that, I would probably talk to your management and say, hey, am I allowed to contact Phoenix and see if we can do this?
Okay, that's great. And leading on to another one, how can someone find out if their CMS has been upgraded and what has changed?
Absolutely. So you'll notice down here at the very bottom, it says build date September 26, 2023, yesterday, so updated very recently. Also, normally on the login screens of your CMMS, it'll have the same information down here. But to figure out what's new, as I was saying, you do have those release notes that I showed through here. And also look to see if those how-to guides have been updated.
Okay, it seems like we're only using a fraction of our CMS. How can I find out what we are and aren't using?
That one's a tough one, simply because if you're a technician, they're going to have security levels set on you. So security levels aren't necessarily always meant as a lot of times people think they're punitive and they're not, right? If you're not going to use the contracts module, right? If you're just not going to use it, then a lot of times they'll hide it. That way, dirty data doesn't go in there or anything like that. I always have a saying, if you give somebody something to click on, they're going to click on it. A lot of that will be in the license file right here where it says load license. But if I go to about, it says that there's this many facilities and stuff like that, but it'll also have tech support numbers and stuff like that. You can reach out and say, hey, what have we bought? Whether or not they'll tell you depends on your access. So I would start with your management and say, hey, look, I'm really not sure we're using 100% of this. Do you remember what you got, or do you have your original purchase order? Because that'll have what was bought. And you can determine what you want to start using from there. Wow, what a great question. Sorry.
Okay, another question here is, what are the most cost-effective ways to get caught up on our CMS capabilities?
Oh man, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but that would be, again, the release notes and the how-tos. But if you have Matthew Binko money and you just don't care, you can always sign up for additional training. I would encourage you to try and get as many people in there at the same time. That way you're only doing one session. And to get caught up should only take about an hour. And that's really not that much money. But definitely reach out to your tech support and say, hey, do you guys ever give demo sessions on your upgrades? Or how can we learn? A lot of times the tech support guys, if they're like our tech support guys, will sit there and talk your ear off and tell you what's new.
Okay, so what are the pros and cons of having a train the trainer policy?
So pros are saving you money, because if they are in constant communication with the vendor and they're constantly being updated with what's new and stuff like that, then it's, I won't say a free resource, but pretty much a free resource for your organization. But one of the biggest cons I found is, like I was mentioning before, you don't want that trainer to go away. So you want to make sure it's a person who's definitely bought into your system. They're not going to go anywhere. But before they leave, because normally people give 2 weeks notice, I would definitely try and have that transfer of knowledge from one train the trainer to the other. But I found it's more of a pro to have a train the trainer than a con. Good questions this time. I like them.
Okay, another question here. I think it's probably going to be more of a summary, but can you provide recommendation on guides to selecting a new CMMS?
So a recommendation guide. So let's start with the obvious. Is the one that you have right now not fitting the bill? And if so, why not? And have you asked your vendor, address your lackings with the vendor, because they could most likely fill them. Second of all, when it comes to selecting a new system, again, goes back to your workflows. Is it going to collect all of the data that you want it to do? And then obviously, can you report on it? There's a lot of things you can do during the go live process, like say, look, we need a report that's going to show us this, and this before we go live. So when selecting that CMMS, I would base it around the workflows, and probably one of the more important ones now is it browser independent? Simply because our first iteration, much like another very famous CMMS out there in the world, our first iteration of AIMS works on Internet Explorer. And so to get it to work these days, you have to use things like IE tab or some other things to get it to work. But you want to make sure that it has scalability. So for example, if I shrink this window to fit on a smaller screen, where did my cursor go? There it is. Will it fit? So if I go into a work order, is it going to stack the fields like that, or am I going to have to scroll over, stuff like that? That way, if I want to use it on a phone, if I want to use it on an iPad, or if I want to use it on a laptop, it's going to work regardless. A lot of organizations are coming from a place where they really value their asset tags and scanning. So is that software going to include barcode scanners, right? You want to make sure that it's going to fit the workflows that you've become accustomed to. I would poll your lowest of the low technician and say, what do you need in order to do your job? Because a lot of times we'll go in and technicians will look and they'll say, man, this is more difficult. Not with our software, obviously. I'm talking about the past, of course. But this is, more of a hassle to do our job now. So involve all layers of your organization. I know that was kind of mixed and mashed, but I think I covered all the major areas. Good question.
Okay, another one coming up here. Are CMMSs typically PM corrective and asset tracking in nature? In the last few years, cybersecurity is becoming a hot topic. Are there any new features that can help with cybersecurity work on medical devices?
Absolutely. So in our system, we have the ability on the equipment in our information services tab to set a software version. Now let's think about the computer you're on now. It may have Windows 8, it may have Windows 10, it may have Windows 11. However, your organization has only approved one version, say it's Windows 10, right? And so we can have a message up at the top, such as critical equipment / system, where it says a software loaded on this device is not the correct version. And you always want to have the correct version because maybe a version has security deficiencies in it and stuff like that. When it comes to information services, we've really added to this over the last few months, not just to have the device information, and I have some stuff turned off here. It's actually much bigger, but the router that it's attached to, information about the basic device, HIPAA, right? And its hardware. That way you can see what's on which network and stuff like that. One of the ways that we get this information in here, because it's a lot of work to do with one piece of equipment at a time, is in our import function, we also give you the ability to update equipment, not just import equipment, but update it as well. That way, if let's say IT gives you a list of all of your biomed equipment and their IP address because they gleaned it from the network, and you need to put it into AIMS. If you can't figure out how to do it on import, we'll be more than happy to help. Good question. Thank you.
Okay, now before we wrap up, I've got another question here.
Bring them on.
What are kind of your top tips to create a training program?
Top tips to creating a training program. You definitely need to have different levels. And it's not just different levels because you're going to have a technician, you're going to have a super user and stuff like that. A vast majority of our customers have multiple service departments on the software. So not only do you have it complicating different levels, but you have the different like facilities versus clinical engineering. I can't tell you how many customers where clinical engineering technicians input equipment, but facilities don't, because really with facilities, it's very rare to keep putting equipment in once it's already in. So identify the different levels and the needs of those levels. From there, you once you've defined and laid out that training, oh wow, I just got a blank. You want to make sure that you have the artifacts for those trainings. That way, if you leave, if someone else leaves or anyone else leaves, it's easy for someone to come in, look at those artifacts, whether it's a recording, whether it's manuals or something like that, that they can very easily come in, read those, and pick up on that training. You want to have that knowledge of that transfer of knowledge readily available. And something that is probably the most important is that those have to be living documents. They have to be living documents. You can't just create them and say, well, I guess we're done, because technology's training, like the gentleman or the person in the previous question said about, IT security, stuff like that, right? So you always want to update those as well. So first of all, define your needs. Secondly, create the artifacts. Thirdly, continue to grow them. Thank you for that question.
Perfect. Thank you, Matthew. We have no other questions come in, so we will wrap up there. So thanks once again, Matthew, for your time and a great and informative presentation. And I'd like to encourage everyone to visit today's sponsor to learn more about the services they provide to the industry. So please visit goaims.com. As promised, the answer to today's trivia question is Harlan Sanders, or more commonly known as Colonel Sanders. So congratulations to our winner, Steve Johnson. Just a quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, and the survey will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. We'll be back next week with another webinar, so please visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and complimentary registration. Thank you all for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.